Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between Liquid HayprO and Adelscott here on Metalopolis. I believe it's pronounced Adelscott. I'm sure some avid fan out there will tell me if I'm wrong. Adelscott spawning as the orange Protoss player over here on the north side of the map at the 1 o'clock position. Meanwhile, we have HayprO spawning over here as the yellow Zerg at the 7 o'clock position on the south side of the map. So this will be a cross spawn here on Metalopolis, and I'm quite curious to see how things will all really play out. Now, HayprO taking a look at the production tab, are still training up drones, maybe trying to go for that extractor trick in just a little bit, should be training up an overlord in just a little bit. Meanwhile, we have a pylon being built on the low ground, so Adelscott going for a more aggressive maneuver, trying to do a fast expansion. We'll be getting a gateway here momentarily. We'll see how HayprO responds to this. It does look like he did go for that extractor trick. Yeah, he did go for that extractor trick, and will also be going for most likely a hatchery at some point. Will he be going for a 14 spawning pool or a 15 hatchery? That will be the question, as this pylon has now finished warping in. So still waiting for it. It looks like he's still chrono boosting and now going to move over with that gateway, or perhaps even a forge. Not 100% sure just quite yet, as now we have the overlord moving out. So HayprO now moving out, and it is going to be a forge. So we have an early forge and a spawning pool being warped into play, being morphed into play, and the forge being warped in. So Adelscott may try to get some cannons perhaps in this position here, or even this position, and then a gateway right here, making a really strong protective measure. Now this probe continuing to move around will quickly find out where his opponent is, as he sees that the overlord is already there, so it already knows that HayprO is down over here, just needs to make sure that there is no early hatchery, and there is in fact going to be a hatchery. So a 15 hatchery being placed down after that 14 spawning pool, and now this hatchery will, or this drone will grow up to be a hatchery as a drone now finally moves out. We do see one photon cannon being warped in here, and this pylon now being finished over here. So I'm still curious as to what Adelscott's really going to be going for. Is he going to be going for this gateway in just a moment, and will he accidentally build it in the wrong position? That is my question. Back over here, we still see more, a queen now being trained up and no gas yet. So Liquid HayprO going for a later gas than normal, and we also have a pylon being warped in outside the viewing range of HayprO. So taking a look at those Zerglings, do not look like it's going to be able to find it. And as this pylon finishes warping in, we may get 2 cannons, and that's going to be a very bad sign indeed. Does not know about those cannons just quite yet. More Zerglings coming in. Another cannon needs to be warped in. Will it be enough? Yes, a second cannon now being warped in, and that's going to be a very bad sign. It's going to be, what, 25 more units a time, and it looks like that will grow up and will be in sight just at the same time as this photon cannon. But this photon cannon has a very minimal exposure over on this side. So this cannon placement is going to be absolutely critical as he now, in comes that hatchery, and now this hatchery taking damage from that photon cannon. A second cannon now being warped in, as a probe quickly getting taken down. Back over here, the Nexus is already up, and now finally we should be getting a gateway. So yeah, in comes that early gateway, and double cannons taking down this hatchery, and HayprO now in a little bit of trouble here. He does have some Zerglings. Will he be able to micro these units? Trying to take down this pylon here. So this pylon has 300 hit points, or 400 hit points total between the two. But now going after that queen. That queen now very low on hit points. Now being forced to pull back once again. Second queen, are we going to get a transfusion? No, queen was taken down. And only 3 drones able to attack at a time with that queen in the back. Now losing more and more. So these photon cannons getting plenty of kills. But that pylon finally taken down. Wow, so barely able to hang on there. No additional probes nearby in order to drop in another pylon. So those 2 cannons will be unpowered and get taken down in peace. So brilliantly done by Liquid HayprO. Liquid HayprO keeping his cool and able to fend off that very aggressive cannon placement by Adelscott. Back over here though, Adelscott now having double cannons and getting an additional pylon, now trying to train up some zealots, as we are now getting that cybernetics core. So Adelscott in a very powerful position as well. It looks like he is finally harvesting some gas out of there, as we have some Zerglings massing up over here. We may get some sort of run by. I'm thinking that a pylon needs to be placed here, otherwise those Zerglings are going to be able to run in very easily. What is going to be happening? Are we going to get another gateway right here? Yeah, another gateway there. and now those Zerglings are going to try to do some sort of run by. There are some photon cannons here, so 1 blast, 2 blasts. Probes now pulling back, now fighting back with the help of those photon cannons. However, the probes are going to be able to make it in, and as they finish this run by, that's going to be a very, very devastating harassment as 7 probes quickly come in, or sorry, 7 Zerglings quickly come in, and now these probes are forced to come off the mineral line. We do have 1 photon cannon, but those probes doing a great job so far. A lot of those probes are low on hit points, but so are some of those Zerglings as well, continuing to fight back and forth, and it almost feels like this game is on a slower setting. Hold on 1 second, let me do a quick check. Can I see? It is on faster. All right, so back over here we do have those, and another zealot quickly getting taken down by drones over here. So now we do have 2 zealots, or 1 zealot being warped in. We do have that warp gate research currently being warped in as well, and now another zealot trying to put more pressure. That zealot, however, gonna run head on into that army of drones and that queen, and quickly gonna get torn apart there. That zealot, however, gets 1 kill. If it gets 2 kills, it will be worth it in terms of the economy and larva count, and yeah, able to get 2 kills and some additional damage on that final one over here. So another zealot now walking on over. So constantly keeping up this pressure, and now upgrading at the forge, level 1 attack weapons upgrade for those zealots and those stalkers. Down over here we do see 5 warp gates now being warped in, so this is going to be all off of a 7 warp gate in just a moment. HayprO now moving out with those Zerglings, not realizing that, and now also setting up an expansion, but not realizing that he's going to be facing against a 7 warp gate in just a moment with a forge and level 1 weapons upgrade. That chrono boost should most likely be placed in momentarily. All of this running off of 2 gas and still waiting for additional pylons, trying to get as many minerals as he is almost going to be supply locked as this pylon is over here. Back over here, hatchery nearly halfway completed. Taking a look at the harvester count, we have 1,300 for Adelscott versus 960 or 1,000 for Liquid HayprO. We also see some spine crawlers now being morphed into play. So those spine crawlers will be very, very important as well to try to hold off any sort of zealot rush. I do not see any sort of proxy pylon, which is a little bit of a surprise. Adelscott does have this pylon over here, so we'll be able to warp in units on this low ground. We do have more zealots and stalkers now being warped in. Level 1 weapons upgrade nearly completed on the stalker. The stalkers will be able to do 15 damage, 11 damage towards light. Zealots will be able to do 18 damage per attack. Sentries able to do 7 damage per second as it continues to upgrade. More Zerglings over here. HayprO now training up a queen over on this side. And army-wise, while Adelscott simply large at 1425, however, Liquid HayprO was training up a lot of roaches and Zerglings, and now catching up in just a moment. We do have 1 Zergling now moving out, but he's going to catch this army in transition. That's going to be a very bad sight there. He is able to get sight of this army over here because of this Zergling at the Zelnaga watchtower, and now there's that proxy pylon. Stalkers now walking over, and will they be able to get any significant damage onto any of these spine crawlers over here? Now trying to fight back, being forced to pull back, and now able to snipe off one of those Zerglings, continuing to just micro back and forth. Zealots and sentries with some stalkers as well, and now more zealots being warped in. So this is all off of that 7 warp gates that I was mentioning earlier. So that 7 gate is going to be very, very strong. Adelscott just continuing with crazy macro now. Roach is trying to fend off this attack, but I do not think it's going to work out well. And Liquid HayprO may be forced to retreat, try to regroup his army. Really needs to produce more and more units. Now getting more and more roaches. So 1725 versus 700 roaches coming in from all sides over here in order to keep on warping, or just keep off all of these stalkers are continuing to warp in over here. More zealots in the back as these stalkers now able to just snipe down some of those overlords. So wow, a quick game here on Metalopolis. Adelscott doing a great job just scouting out, or just scouting and putting early pressure. He never really let HayprO gain any serious momentum. He constantly was running zealots head on into this battle over here. HayprO was trying to get another expansion up and running over here, and if HayprO's game did go a little bit longer, he may have had a significant economic advantage to take this. However, Adelscott timing this absolutely perfectly. Level 1 weapons upgrade already completed and already running off of 8 warp gates total. So those 8 warp gates constantly producing more and more units, and while just doing a great job there. Almost level 1 armor upgrade as well. If I was the Zerg player, what HayprO really needed to do was he really needed to figure out and scout out what his opponent was doing. Trying to suicide an overlord into the base would have been absolutely necessary in this case. If he saw that Adelscott was going for an 8 gate push, I'm sure that he would not have tried to take this additional expansion over here And instead of taking an additional expansion over here, try to macro up and get a stronger army. Over here, you can already see what a queen and an extra hatchery. This is about 550 minerals in an army right there. So yeah, that's really what cost them the game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed game 1 in this series. I will be casting the follow-up games as well. This is all part of the GosuCup. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.